This video is going to go over how to repair a bumper cover that's cracked on a modern car, basically. So this is a bumper cover from a 1998 Honda Civic. It's seen better days. I think most people would probably throw it in the trash, but you don't have to. There's ways you can fix this. This particular bumper, and a lot of them nowadays, are made out of polypropylene, which is a thermoplastic. So what that means is you can melt them and reform them, basically. So if you have a dent somewhere, you can heat it up and push it from the back side and straighten it out. This particular one is pretty beat up. You can see it's got a big crack here, and it's got a missing piece on the corner here. It's supposed to go like that. And this just had tape on it when I got the car. Well, it's a Honda Civic. You could buy a new one, but I'm trying to do this on a budget, and also I want to practice this technique because it's useful to be able to do. Now, a lot of guys would drill holes on either side of the crack and use zip ties to stitch it back together. That's fine, but it doesn't look that good, and if you want your car to be presentable, it's not really the best option. It'll work, keep it from falling apart, but I'm going to show you how we can repair this without spending a lot of money, and it's not really that difficult. If you can solder, you can do it. If you can watch a video, you can do it too. So anyways, this crack goes from the edge here all the way down. I don't know if you can still see that, all the way almost around the corner. So this bumper cover was hit in the front, so that the headlight would be pointing this way, so you're looking at the driver's side of it. So it was hit here, and it bent it and knocked a bunch of paint off because it flexed, and then it split it here and broke it here at the mounting point. So first thing you need to do is get some filler material. So there's a couple ways you can do that. You can go to the junkyard and cut a piece off of another bumper cover and use that as your filler material. That's probably the cheapest way to do it. But what I like to do is, if you go on Amazon or eBay or AliExpress, you can get these sticks of polypropylene. So if you search for bumper weld material, you can see this one says PP on it for polypropylene. Maybe you can see that, or maybe it's washed out. There you go, PP for polypropylene. So this is basically just a, let's see, can you see it? Yeah, kind of. It's just a stick of plastic, more or less. And this is the same material, polypropylene, as the bumper cover. So what you can do is you can heat this up, and you can melt this in as a filler, sort of like you're welding or you're soldering. It's kind of the same concept. Now the material acts a little different than metal, but in my opinion it's easier to work with because it's very forgiving. You can just keep remelting it, and you're not burning yourself as much as you would with a torch or something. So you can do this with some pretty basic tools. I've got here is just a regular old Dremel with a cutoff wheel on it, and then I've got this big Welding soldering gun with just a tip that I use for this. It's not anything special. I kind of bent it over, so oh, there we go. I kind of bent it over so it's a little bit easier to use, and you'll see how I use that going forward. Now this is a 260 watt gun. You could do it with a 40 watt soldering iron from Harbor Freight if you wanted to. It might not be as easy, but you can do it. So you have this grinder, which you're going to use to get the paint and everything off of the front side of the bumper cover. So I'm not trying to take a lot of material out. I'm just trying to run it along here to make a spot for my repair, basically. So I kind of put it back in position a little bit. I do have a little part that's melted together on the back just to hold it together because I got it relatively well lined up. So I'm just going to try not to talk over the power tool. I'm just going to take this and clean up this area along the crack so that I can melt it, because it's got 2 layers of paint over it, and you're not really going to be able to get the new material to fuse to the old if you don't clean it off first. Okay, so as you saw, that's pretty easy with the Dremel tool. You're just taking as little away as you can to get a pretty clean plastic surface to start melting. So what I like to do is I go over it once with the soldering iron to melt the original material back together, and in this section here you're going to want to hold it so that it is in more or less the shape that it's supposed to be. So I'll probably have to hold that like that while I melt this part. And then you just go across and melt it, and then when you come back you can add your filler in, and it'll be built up so you can sand it and put body filler on it and fix it up. So plug this in first, it'll work better. Now you could easily have just done that with sandpaper too. It would take longer, but if you don't have a Dremel, you can do it. Okay, so what I like about this gun is it heats up pretty quick. I'm going to start at the end so they have it all lined up, because this part seems to be least willing to line itself up. So you want to go slow so that the tip of the soldering iron can sink down into the plastic a little bit. Okay. So my guess is that will hold it. Now it kind of sort of looks like a TIG weld if you're doing it right. I mean, it doesn't make any difference if it looks good or not at this stage, but by going slow you can still sort of see that crack, but it's melting that material together. So I'll just keep going here across it. Let it get warmed up before I do that. And the reason I'm holding the gun like this is because I've got a curve in the end of my soldering iron tip. I can't show you that at all. There's a curve in it, so I'm trying to use the curved part to my advantage. Sort of like a paddle here. As long as you're not melting through, you're doing fine, but you do want to leave a path that's lower behind your soldering iron, because that means you're melting down into the parent material of the bumper cover. When you have a long crack like this, it takes a bit. One thing that's worth mentioning is that this plastic does not smell that good when it burns. I'm sure it's not good for you if you breathe it. So make sure you've got your windows and doors open like I do. It's not a bad idea to put a fan on it either. Try not to put your face right above it and just breathe it the whole time. I'm sure in California you get cancer from this. We're not in California. Okay, so that's the first pass. Now it's more or less one piece now. It's not that strong. I'm sure I could crack it if I tried hard. Why would I do that? I'm trying to fix it. Since this piece needs to go back on there, I'm going to briefly show you how that goes, just to get it on there. And then I'll show you how to fill this in with the new polypropylene rod. So the first step is, again, clean it up. Alright, so I just roughed up both sides of this. You can see it's, maybe you can't see. There. So I can make this more visible for you. You can see this part fits in there actually pretty good. So even though it's broken off, it's still the right shape. And if you found that this piece was all bent, so it didn't line up properly, you can heat this up with a heat gun and bend it around to the shape you need it to be. So in this case I don't need to. Wait for that to get a little bit warm. Okay, so there you can see It's not very strong at this point, so I can actually crack it and break it off. We'll melt that back in again. And the deeper you go while you're doing this, the stronger it's going to be. Okay, so I'm not too worried about how strong that is at this point. You saw how easily I was able to break it off. There's actually a piece missing right here. You saw how easily I was able to break it off. Well, once you get another coating of filler on top of that, and then you're going to do the same thing on the back side, it'll be pretty strong when you're done doing that. So, let's show you how to melt this filler in. See if we can reposition the light so it's not. Let's see if that works better. So I'm not making shadows the whole time. Now this first pass, I'm really just trying to get it melted on there. I'm not really trying to get it to fuse to the bottom really well. I'm just trying to get filler on there right now. So you can see why they call this plastic welding, because it's kind of the same concept as welding metal. You're trying to get the filler and the base material heated up so that they fuse together. Okay, so by now I hope you're getting the gist of it. Now, once you get all the way across, so I went across the first time, and then I went across and put my filler in, and then I went back across and melted it in good. This is pretty strong now and pretty flexible, just like the original bumper cover was. Now, if you don't do the back side, it's going to crack right away, because you can't melt it all the way through unless you go from both sides. But once you do that, it's pretty strong and it works pretty well. And that's kind of the gist of it. There's not any real magic to it. You can buy kits to do this. If you search plastic bumper welding kits or something to that effect, you can find you know, the polypropylene rods, and it comes with like a soldering iron or a soldering gun. They might have a little better shaped tip for what you're trying to do. This one's probably not really for that, but it works and it can put stuff back together. And I'll show you one of the repairs I've already done, which is right here. So it was cracked all along here. So I already did both sides, filled it, and then sanded it down a bit. It feels like it's still got some low spots and it's a little bent. It's a little bent like right here still. But if you use a flexible body filler, you can get that. You can get that so it's pretty nice. Key is make sure you're using a flexible body filler on this. You can use body filler, but it's got to be. If you use regular Bondo and something happens and you hit this, it's not going to flex. It's going to pop and crack that Bondo, and then it's going to look junky again. So that's what I have to show you today. Hopefully it's helpful to some people. It's not something that there are a lot of videos on that I've seen. So enjoy.